Hello, fight fans. Seattle Mike Fights with Friends. Everybody, please hit that like button or I will have Adelaide Bird grade your SAT test. Make sure that you're subscribed and don't forget to double ring that bell so you receive all notifications of when we drop a new video or go live. Guys, we got to talk about the Jake Paul versus Tyron Woodley aftermath because it is a disaster. Now, I know when Jake Paul first started boxing, I said, I don't want to cover this at all. I really didn't. And some of you guys had to talk me into it. And I didn't want to stream the fights. I didn't stream it. You know, the first fight, I didn't do a reaction for it. It wasn't until he was fighting Ben Askren that I did that one. And that was just because I seen MMA fighters start to get into the mix and said, hey, I want to see one of these guys beat this punk. I feel a little different about Jake Paul right now. I'm not saying I'm a fan, but I have respect for what he's doing in the business world. But I want to talk about this fight specifically. What most people go to immediately is the fourth round. And let's bring that up real quick. Tyron Woodley knocks Jake Paul into the ropes. Okay, first thing a lot of people mention is the very large support strap here that is holding the ropes together to keep fighters upright. One thing, this should have been a knockdown. By the rules, the unified rules of boxing, that is clearly a knockdown when the ropes hold you up. So there's no question that that should have been a 10-8. Now, the judges cannot score that if the referee didn't call it a knockdown, though. That would be against the rules. So you want to talk about the straps here. Some people do want to talk about the straps. And I actually like that they have the support straps. I hope it's there for every fight now. I don't know how many people seen the way Bernard Hopkins' career ended, but it was very sad. He's almost 50 years old. Then he got hit and knocked through the ropes, knocked unconscious, bashed his head on one of the announcers' tables, and it was horrific. If these had been old school ropes, Tyron Woodley literally might have killed Jake Paul. And then there's nobody talking about who won the fight. You don't wish that upon anybody, and obviously I certainly don't. But a lot of people are like, okay, why didn't Woodley jump on Paul here? Well, Woodley was having a hard time getting adjusted just to boxing in general, seemingly, the first few rounds. I had mentioned, if you were watching the reaction, the way that he turned his punches, the way that he carried himself around the ring, it wasn't like a boxer right away. It was more like an MMA fighter. And I wonder how much actual sparring he had had coming into this match. Got much better. Seemed to have gotten comfortable by the fourth round. Came out very aggressively, had this shot here, and then just kind of laid back. Kind of like when Nate Diaz pointed at Leon Edwards, like, ha ha, I hurt you, but I'm not going to do anything about it. And Tyron Woodley would continue to not do anything about it for the next about 13 and a half minutes. So that had a lot of people up in arms, and if you had bet on Tyron Woodley, I imagine you would be absolutely pissed. I would be. But now let's go to the other side and try to explain that away, though. Tyron Woodley, he's had this issue at the end of his career. He's almost 40 years old. He's had a lot of fights, a lot of miles, a lot of high-level fights, mind you. So the fact that he wasn't able to pull the trigger, didn't pull the trigger, and was hesitant, that wasn't the first time. That's like the fifth time in a row. That's why he's not in the UFC anymore. Did it against Kamaru Usman, did it against Gilbert Burns, did it against Colby Covington. Pulled the trigger a little more against Vicente Luque, which even though he lost that fight, that's what made me want to watch this fight and made me think that Tyron Woodley could probably beat Jake Paul. Now, what exactly happened there, I don't know. Only Tyron Woodley could tell you that. But what I do know is I was very upset about the press conference afterwards. When Tyron Woodley, I had mentioned he looked thirsty. Looked like he hadn't been there before. And he's saying, oh, I'm going to get a tattoo I love Jake. And Jake's like, oh, you gotta get a tattoo. I love Jake. Oh, I'll do it right now. I'm like, what are you doing? You're like a puppy dog right now. Why are you begging this man? And that's because I hadn't really done a lot of research and the behind the scenes drama. Apparently, this had been an agreement the entire time. And there's the designs to the tattoos that these two agreed on. That the loser would get I love the winner's name with these gloves tattooed on them, which is completely ridiculous. I don't condone that, but it makes a little more sense about what was happening in the press conference. Why else would people think that, there's a lot of money to gain in having, an egregious decision, or maybe something that might set up a rematch, or that someone even could have been paid off. And I am not alleging that whatsoever. Showtime, they've done a great job with production and promotion, and I hope that they stay involved with the boxing game, especially now that HBO has taken their name out of the hat. I think Showtime actually has the best presentation by far in combat sports right now. They're doing a great job in boxing, doing a great job with Bellator. But another reason a lot of people are talking about is the big payday. This is no doubt the biggest payday that Tyron Woodley ever seen in his career. Unless you're a guy like Conor McGregor, Brock Lesnar, Ronda Rousey, now maybe Nate Diaz, and John Jones has, he's gotten these types of paydays. A couple $1 million. $2 million paydays are not common in the UFC. Woodley was getting a lot of $500,000 paydays. So reported to the Ohio State Athletic Commission was a $2 million purse. So we know that both Woodley and Paul received at least $2 million each. For a guy that had just bombed out of the UFC, losing 4 fights in a row, that is a sensational amount of money. So you could see what the motivation would be for him to want to do it again. Let's make this look good. Let's do it again. Like I said, I am not making that accusation. I take that accusation very, very seriously. And I don't think this fight was fixed. Definitely not in the manner that you would say, oh, that was a fake fight. Because it definitely was not. Those were real punches. Those were real knockdowns. Pretty much everything going on in there was real. I do have questions about a few things, but it's not like I can point to it and say, hey, that was illegal or anything like that. This is not a Kimbo Slice, a Seth Petrozelli moment where, Seth Petrozelli was allegedly paid to not strike not try to take Kimbo down for so much of the fight, and to strike with him ends up knocking him out in 14 seconds anyways. And that's where the phrase, or if you hear Dana White say that's effing illegal, which has become a popular soundbite, that's where that comes from. That's not this type of fight. And that was never prosecuted, by the way. So I really don't think this is going to get prosecuted. In fact, I know it's not. But the other part of this is like, why would Woodley not throw this fight? Okay, it's on Showtime, which now has Bellator. And they now have Scott Coker. Tyron Woodley, not only the former UFC champion, also the former Strikeforce champion. So he could have some motivation. He has an impressive performance. Maybe he can jump into Bellator, make a couple more fights, rebound, his status, if you will. Because this guy is about making rap records. He's on TMZ. He's doing a lot of media things. So one good fight, it was worth a lot to his reputation. It wasn't like he wasn't going to get the $2 million if he won. So, the Ohio State Athletic Commission, I guarantee you, was not going to take that money away from him if he won the fight. But maybe it makes people think for just the second, hey, maybe Dana White was onto something with the win bonus? I don't know. I don't know if I'm still not really on board with taking half of a fighter's money, especially when they can get screwed over by unscrupulous judges like this man, Phil Rogers. Scored 6 rounds to 2 in favor of Tyron Woodley. In fact, after round 2, he gave every single round to Tyron Woodley. And if there is anything egregious, if there is any funny business going on behind the scenes, if we're going to look into anybody, it's Phil Rogers. And if anybody knows Phil Rogers or Phil Rogers watching this, I'm sorry, you're a scumbag. You're an absolute scumbag. And I would say that to your face. There's no way. If you thought Tyron Woodley won 6 of the 8 rounds, you should not even be allowed to watch boxing. Now, sometimes there's an egregious scorecard, and I go, hey, if somebody's new, which this guy could be, because you see on the official scorecard, whoever the original judge was, his name was actually, his or her name, I can't quite make it out, was actually scratched off. I'm serious. They scratched the name off of the other judge. Let's blow this up a little bit so you guys can see this. I'm gonna blow this up full screen and see if you guys can make out the name underneath. But this is the entire scorecard, and you know, you can see 77, 75, Jaime Goraiwa. You see 79, 74 for Dana DePaulo. And then way out of left field, you have Phil Rogers, 77, 75. And you can see it right there after the 3rd round. Oh, excuse me, it was 5 rounds to 3. I said 6 rounds to 2. I meant 5 rounds to 3. So, but he gave, like I said, all the last 5 rounds. You definitely want to give Woodley the 4th. I don't think you want to give him the 7th since, you know, Paul landed the only good shots in the 7th round. But, I mean, he does, obviously. So that's the guy that you need to look into. If you want to talk about anybody in a fixed fight or anybody doing anything shady, Phil Rogers is your man. Yes, I am throwing him under the bus, 100%. But I want to know what you guys think. If you watched the fight, what did you guys think? Did you think, hey, Woodley's holding back because he wants some more money? Did you think that maybe Paul held back? A lot of people talked about an uppercut that Paul landed and Woodley fell into him. And if you watch it in slow motion, you could come to the conclusion that Jake Paul held him up. I don't think that's what happened. I think that's one of those things that you have to watch in full speed because it happened in full speed. And everyone's thinking in full speed. So sometimes, even though slow motion, you can see little details. Sometimes it can make it look like there's something there that's really not. And that's just my opinion on that. I am dying to get your guys' opinion on that, though, since this has been such a hot button topic. I mean, not just on Twitter and Facebook. This is several, several news sites were talking about this. The Sun, daily.uk, not the big ones, not USA Today, not ESPN.com, but there's definitely some articles being written about this, and I don't think it's completely, ridiculous to say that maybe this should be looked into, especially you, Phil Rogers. On that, I look forward to reading your guys' comments. As always, I love you. I respect you. And I'll see your fine asses next time.